ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಜರ್ನಿ ಮಾತು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಲೈಫ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಚಾಮುಂಡೇಶ್ವರಿ ಮಾತಾ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಲಿಸಿದ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಪಾಠ ಯಾವುದು?
India has a very rich and incredible culture, heritage and temples, right? But in the world, rather than world, Indian people don't even know what is exactly it is. So what do a creator like us, educators and even the policy makers can do to make it relevant for the next coming generation?
Every dynasty has stories that history remembers. So which forgotten chapter of the Wadiyar legacy do you feel every Indian should know?
It's so nice of him to have us here at his palace. So thank you so much for accepting our invite and having us here.
Not at all. My pleasure.
Yeah. And sir, the people in this room, they are one of the inspiring voices of the youth today in our country. They're exhaustively busy, but I have locked them in Mysuru for 2 days. And now this is the time where they have to be right there in the digital space to put out a counter narrative, and they have been not into entertainment, and their combined viewership together is close to 100 million. Those select people in this particular room, and one difference that you could see is they are not someone who are into entertainment. They are someone who are into digital news creation, opinion making, and they have the knowledge, they have the will, and more important, they are into action. So especially I would like to mention the ladies we have here. We have seven ladies here. So they have been vulnerable with the level of speeches they give, the content they create. They receive threats after threats, but they chose to do this for the bigger cause. And what I have seen, what I've observed in the past 3 days is that they've been juggling. We've been taking to different places in Mysuru, but they come back and they quickly look into what's happening. They do a small research and immediately publish it.
Fantastic.
So it was nice for us to host them and to also have you today with us. A little brief about, you already know about SMaRT. The very reason why we wanted to organize something like this is that we want them to interact with you, number one, and number two is we have been in the stewardship of digital space for the past 6 years, and we are entering our 7th year. What we started as 25 members 5 years ago, now we are 640 plus. Our chairman founder Jai Kishan Javer, he's the founder of Javer group of companies, and he has been into industries. What makes him unique is that he has been into the social work also, along with his family and himself. He's a senior citizen, and what inspires me from him is that the social work can be done in many areas. He's actually doing it, but to think that somebody should come out and do social work on a digital space, the vision he had 6 years ago, it demonstrates the love that he has for our country. He says all our people are scattered. They need an institution to back them, and that's why we are not like any other marketing agency who work with influencers. We are here for a cause. And also, sir, we are entering our 7th year, and this year we are organizing a grand summit in Delhi for 3 days. We are having the Vice President and few governors also. We'd like to take this opportunity to invite you also.
Of course, thank you so much.
Yeah, and so we'll just straight away get into the question, or
Sure.
You want to speak some words to them?
I mean, my welcomes to all of you in Mysore. Honored to have you all here from the length and breadth of India, and very glad that SMaRT, alongside many things that they've been doing, which we're all very proud of, they're also bringing you all onto one platform. I think while we all have individual aspirations, what we require is obviously in certain matters one thread of thought, or being on the same page, I think is the most important thing, and I think this serves as a very good medium for that. And so I'm very proud, and I'm sure all of you are, of what SMaRT is doing. And I look forward to largely the interaction. I think that keeps it more lively rather than me talking whatever we talk. I'm sure you all are more informed than I am. But I'm very happy that you all are here in Mysore. We don't get the attention we deserve. So while you are doing all the important work you are, some of the stuff about Mysore also we'd love for you all to take forward. And have you all done the tour of the palace?
Yes, we did go. No, palace after.
Okay. So I'm sure it'll be that I'm trying to get the Guides Association. That's one more thing where we have to work. Guides in India have a very let's say, training system that suffers from the same thing most of India's training, governmental training suffers from. That is a lack of history, including my own guides here, because obviously we have this issue with the state, and the guides come from the tourism department, not what is in the private quarters of the palace, but what is in the public areas. So they have their version of history, and no matter how much we change it, they still have that textbook history where, you know, a lot of unrelated and unwanted and untrue things above everything else, above untrue things come in. So that aspect of it also we're trying to go over. So there's a lot of work that can be done specifically to the place you're visiting today, and in the broader spectrum of what you all are working on SMaRT. I'm sure already a great alignment has happened, and everybody is, I think, talking now, especially influencers are talking now, I think in a very elevated and a very strategized manner, which really, I think, has knowledge of ourselves, and I think that will eventually come down for the common populace to be very well informed about our own Indic sort of knowledge systems, Indic what is our legacy here, and then that will carry forward to, I think, a good understanding of what India is, and naturally that will form the barricade against all these forces that are trying to come into India. You all are all obviously aware of what is going on and why this session has been particularly volatile. We haven't got anything done in the actual institution where things are supposed to be done in the parliament. That has been just us coming in, 5 minutes of seeing them go after, come and get into the well, from there down to the well, and then the house being halted and adjourned or whatever, and all of us just going to the sitting and having a coffee. That's what's been our session so far. So these things, I think, are very relevant to what you all are doing in the grand spectrum of things, and we're very proud that you all have brought together this place. We can get into that also into detail if you want. And any other question also, I know they sent a list, but I didn't really see it, because let's keep it as natural as possible.
Yeah,
and
that's actually,
let's, I think, open up the floor to that only, because
we'll
there's no
keep
point
it candid as possible. Sir, you have the profiles of people who are here. You can have a look at it. And in this room we have people from Jammu, we have from Telugu states, the Tamil states, the Hindi belt, and the Bengali belt. Okay. Who wants to go first?
Namaskara, sir.
Namaste.
My name is B. Vamshi Vikyat. I'm from Bhagyanagar and famously called as Hyderabad. As Telugu people and Kannada people have traditionally and religiously a connection, I want to ask you in Kannada only, sir. ನಿಮ್ಮ ಸ್ಪಿರಿಚುವಲ್ ಜರ್ನಿ ಮಾತು ಪಬ್ಲಿಕ್ ಲೈಫ್ನಲ್ಲಿ ಶ್ರೀ ಚಾಮುಂಡೇಶ್ವರಿ ಮಾತಾ ನಿಮಗೆ ಕಲಿಸಿದ ಅತ್ಯಂತ ಮುಖ್ಯವಾದ ಪಾಠ ಯಾವುದು?
So, I mean, for the convenience of everyone, he's asking what is the most important lesson I've learned from Chamundeshwari. Please sit down. I think you can ask also your question sitting down, no issue. I think it hasn't been, it's very hard pressed to find one lesson like that. But I know for a fact, like, and I've mentioned this in many interviews, it's very hard to explain these things, because largely, you know, I'm very formal in the sense the philosophy that comes down is a very good basis and a very good means for you to understand or give meaning to what life you have, or give purpose to what you want. And that is separate from the bhakti aspect, wherein is the sort of devotional aspect you have. And you know, largely growing up and obviously being a teenager, while maybe I didn't go all the way, you know, to where the leftists are, I certainly was more towards the philosophy side, and understanding that that is the crux of things, and maybe was a person who always thought bhakti is this thing where it's the mainstream. It's for people who don't devote time or don't want to get into the philosophy that allows it to go through. But largely, I think above all else, what I've learned from Chamundeshwari and Devi worship, that aspect is equally important. That prayer just for the sake of prayer, devotion just for devotion, not because there is this philosophical bedrock or basis, just the pure aspect of devotion and belief, without that sort of scientific agenda of proof and theory and the philosophy behind. The importance of that I never really understood till I sort of came to Palace. The philosophy, the underpinnings, everything else I was well in alignment was, and I was a very big proponent and believer in that. I always thought bhakti was this thing where, it's a mainstream thing, it's not really necessary for you. I think that's what I've learned. I thought that largely as you mature, you'll lean more into the philosophy if anything. But I think that the bhakti aspect of it is a great thing. So purely on a spiritual basis, I think that aspect of it, which I never thought would grow, definitely grew. And I don't know, I've many instances, many things have happened where, it cannot be explained. People say coincidence, but, in my family, they said coincidence is the excuse you use when you don't understand how this universe works. So, I think the fact of overall having a purpose, understanding that maybe you will use whatever means to get there, but you'll largely use transparent and sincere means to get where you're going. You are in the field of politics, and there is a dharmic code even there of how you work and how you do things. But largely, if your goal is sincere in what you're doing, I think that the outcome will be helped along by all forces of the universe. And I mean, I don't know, I've said this many times, and it's up to whoever wants to believe it or not, but it is very much the fact. I haven't asked for any of these things. It has come of its own doing. I haven't, whether it be getting adopted and then coming into the palace, all of the things that happened later. I was a novice. I didn't know how to do even a small puja, leave alone Shodapshora, and then go into all of the other facets of doing a full puja and then doing the Dasara pujas as well. Nothing I knew. From there to now, largely knowing zero about politics, or even knowing what a booth, Shakti Kendra, anything of that was, within a week of saying okay to the party and then getting the ticket a week later, and a month later finishing the elections, 2 months later getting the result, and 2 years now sitting. Everything has come on its own. I haven't asked for anyone, I haven't come. Even that came naturally. A party came to the door. I of course opened the door. That's also the fact of the matter. But that's all sort of happened on its own. And so, but it has felt natural, and in the progression hasn't felt forced. It has felt like everything has come at the time which is there. And so I think largely things, I don't know, personally for me, the only thing that you have control is that aspect of your devotion and your belief, not belief, but knowing that this is the truth of what we stand for here in India and Bharatiya sort of legacy. So, not one answer specifically, but yeah, I think everything is largely dictated by those forces, and I've been fortunate enough to take, I think, good advantage. I don't know about maximum, but good advantage of wherever I've got that opportunity.
Namaste, sir.
Namaste.
My name is Srijana, and I'm coming from Siliguri, but right now I'm in Coimbatore exploring the southern, culture and temples of India. So my question to you is, India has a very rich and incredible culture, heritage, and temples, right? But in the world, rather than world, Indian people don't even know what is exactly it is. So what do a creator like us, educators, and even the policy makers can do to make it relevant for the next coming generation?
I think largely you all are already doing the right things. But please sit down only and ask everyone this thing. I think largely you all are doing the right things only. You all are using all the mediums. In fact, I've learned a lot more about snippets from that philosophy. Of course, once you get into the depth of it, you'll have to go and read and do whatever. But that aspect of giving that relevant knowledge towards whether it be the structure of the temple, whether it be the architecture that goes into constructing a temple, whether it is why certain practices are there, I think all the influencers are doing the right thing and getting that point across very well. The reason why I think largely a temple space is seen like any other religious space, rather than a center for sort of rejuvenating your energy and doing, in the true sense, which you all, I am sure, are aware of, is because we've sort of not educated that there's that, the understanding of our own culture and why we do things is largely, I think, forgotten, and we align it with the Abrahamic sort of religious identity. So for us, they've aligned it as if going to a church or going to a mosque is the same thing as going to a temple. It isn't fundamentally. There is an overlap. I'm not saying no, because we do go pray and they also go pray there. But there is a different objective and a different reason why we go there. And the space is consecrated for a specific purpose. So that has to be there. So it never occurred to us throughout time that there were certain temples for women only, there are certain temples for men only, there are certain temples where women and men can't go. The intersex or the other or identifiable other genders, whatever that may be, and wherever you want to fit in the bill in that thing, they also have temples in Tamil Nadu, which you can only go to them. So this aspect never occurred to us as strange until modern times, and those have been challenged by the modern institution of democratic India. We are challenging ourselves in that. Even during British times, it's largely unchanged, because despite all of that colonial agenda, the awareness of why we do things was naturally there. So the breakup post-independence of the family structure, the movement from mother to son, and it's a general aspect of all cultures. Even in the Western world, they've broken the family. May not be as large joint family as Indian, but that family unit, they have largely been breaking apart. That has completely removed all this natural progression of our cultural education which happens. So that, I think, now has to happen through new mediums, which you all have to take up. I think that's it. And largely for me, from my perspective, I think you all are doing very well. And the alignment has to come because we don't have really that exposure of this thing. So before, we would think we have to go to Jain or we have to go to Kashi just because it's the important place. We didn't understand in Bharat why that is an important place. It is as important as Kanchi. So now who knows that in this, I'll be very frank, till Ayodhya was, brought up in the way it was brought up in the last 4-5 years of where it came to where we were able to rebuild it. We didn't know it's one of the 7 important places which is mentioned in that Skanda Purana, which is very particular for all Hindus to go to, along with Kanchi, Haridwar, Ujjain, and Somnath and all of them. These important places, which are 7, where 7 important historic events happened, we never knew. That alignment had never happened. So Kanchi is also there, Ayodhya is also there, equally important. So that aspect of it, has to, I think, come out. And even the architecture behind it. There are so many people who just want to go to temples just for the sake of looking at architecture, looking at the history. That all should be allowed with these things. So I think there's a lot which can be brought in. And I think this technology, we have to use it for ourselves. And if you all are all working in any level of AI, I think that aspect, is controlled by one group sitting in Silicon Valley, which is largely unaligned with us, more aligned with those forces that, are right now there in Jantar Mantar. So you want to sort of, even if you all are there and you all have that ability to, code and are in, influencing those aspects, AI should be as non-aligned in any ideology as possible. That aspect, Indian AI should definitely look up, and I think that is something we in Mysore are trying very hard. We have a Mysore.ai is there. I mean, it's still a long way from coming along, because where we don't have any of the resources that these bigger companies do. But Indian technology systems, and now at the base level, you all are using this to propagate. but within the code itself, these things have to get in.
Namaste ji, I'm Ajay Kumar from Hyderabad. So my question is, every dynasty has stories that history remembers. So which forgotten chapter of the Wadiyar legacy do you feel every Indian should know?
I mean, we are very thankful again to the local influencer group and many of the Karnataka influencer groups, because they are the ones who brought out all the Mysore history. Of course, now books have been written and all this is happening, but they have done a large part, great service to bring most of that out in many instances, which we have also sort of forgotten ourselves. Because, you know, in the transition post-independence, after my grandfather passed away, we gave the archives also to the government, and that became a big mess. I mean, you don't even want to see the Palace Archives office, which is there in some government building here. We're in the process of reviving that and getting it back, but in all of that, we lost a lot of the core histories that were there. But what has been most surprising to me, a lot of the policies that were done in the, what we say is the golden era of Mysore, of Krishna Datta IV, echo a lot of what is happening today at the center. You know, you have what was Manrega, and now it's become, you know, G bill, the G now Yojana which we're doing. That very much, that same sentiment was there as a welfare scheme in the Mysore state as well, wherein public works at the Gram Panchayat level would be awarded and they would be paid via a select fund of the state itself, Mysore state directly. There wasn't any center, state, all of that. But directly, depending on the work that was done, and it was given to the Gram Panchayat to allot it. Like this, there were medical schemes also, that is in our healthcare related schemes also, which very much echoed the same sentiment here. So I think that alignment has happened, because we've had the, you know, we've been patrons of culture, we had very good industry set up, we did all this welfare, all of that is good. But I think getting into the nitty-gritty of it, of how well thought out our administrative agenda then, and from the Maharaja to the Diwans to the administrative workers that were there, is something that is, I think, very interesting to look at purely now as a politician as well, when we see that aspect of it. So that is something I always want to highlight. Like, technically, if you want to say pre-Tipu, pre-Hyder and Tipu, that history is largely forgotten. Our history post that is well done, because there was a revival of everything here, including this fort and then all the temples around and the culture and the administration, everything. That whole revival story is well documented and well learnt. Pre-Tipu, the kings and all that, largely outside of Karnataka, no one knows. And they themselves resisted a lot, because after the Vijayanagara Empire, that is the Karnataka Empire, dissolved, largely the only one able to control anything around here was Mysore. Of course, it wasn't as expansive as them, and we, Kodagu and the coast, we didn't, and the North Karnataka was, you know, under the Bijapur, and after that Gulbarga and all of those different sultanates. Largely here, nobody interfered, because Mysore was a very stable state. Even when the Maratha forces came down, they would circumvent Mysore and go all the way down south. Of course, Shivaji had he had an axe to grind with his brother. That was another matter. But they largely didn't get into Mysore, because it was a largely stable place. And then later, of course, we had our own trouble of our own doing, but that is pan-India, with our own people and our own forces when it came down. Ranadira Kantira Narasimha Wadiyar, there is a film done by Dr. Rajkumar, but nobody knows. There's an Amar Chitrakatha comic about him, but largely nobody knows about his forays. I mean, and very interesting life, if anything. Chikdevraj Wadiyar, who is probably the greatest of our Maharajas, of all of this thing, he extended it all the way to Tiruchirappalli, including building the first dam. Of course, that dam fell, and damming the waters and not allowing it to go to Tamil Nadu. He is the one who did it in those days. So early 1600s, early 1700s. So those stories are largely forgotten. So they're not one thing. I think that era pre-Hyder Tipu is not known, and I think there is a great deal to take out of Hyder and Tipu itself, which people have conveniently built narratives around. Hyder himself was very able and built this great empire, which his son lost all the way. The only reason why Tipu is put up first by the British is because they defeated him. So they wanted to show that they defeated this greatest of rulers who wasn't really. He is the one who eroded everything. And they never propped up the father because the father beat the East India Company at every which way. Whatever you want to say about Hyder, he killed many members of my family, murdered them, etc. He was the first Indian to defeat the East India Company. The East India Company couldn't get a hold of entire South India when he was here. His armies laid siege to Madras. That is a fact, which you cannot say anything. Of course, his means and the way he did it was absolutely violent and disastrous. That's another matter. But the East India Company was first broken by Hyder. Nobody did that even after. So he was the one who did that. And then he was largely secular in outlook. When a Muslim cleric came up and said, they had pelted stones on the Rangnath Swami procession which was happening in Srirangpatna, he said, why are you doing, that's been going on for centuries, why are you going and interfering to that cleric? That cleric said, I'm going to leave and I'm going to hell with you and all that, and Hyder let him leave and come. There are many instances where Hyder was like this. So he was largely unbothered by, he didn't know anything about religion to begin with, and largely unbothered by these things. But they didn't want to showcase this. So post-British, the reason why they hung on to Tipu was one, this great warrior narrative that built up, and then he adhered to the Islamic agenda. He aligned himself with the Caliphate agenda, aligned himself with all of that. So all of these aspects, is not known at all. The actual person who built up the state, great state, was Hyder. He built up Bangalore as a military fortress, and they were producing 3 cannons per month, which was unheard of, some 150 guns. Nobody had done all those things. He had managed to build a very effective military state, whatever you want to say about him. So they've conveniently pushed the person who was actually a loser throughout life and died a miserable death with really unknown who killed him, who did it, nobody knows. There's a random soldier who didn't even know who he was. So he died a very lowly death, like not even a martyr. So all these aspects are not known when we come out. So those are things to really highlight and show how they've sort of misrepresented history for a convenient fact of pushing an agenda. So this is one thing which is there. And then in largely with the princely India, if you want to get into it, the fact that you were all British stooges is one thing they conveniently pushed, not knowing. And now of course there are leftist agendas only which I've published. There's that False Ally book by Manu Pillai also, which has shown that in fact we weren't very well aligned with the British at all. And this is a person who comes from that spectrum of things. So there are things coming out, but largely ours was a very sort of tough relation with them. Half the time to build the KRS itself, we had so much resistance from the governor of Madras. And the governor of Madras was always a thorn in our side for Mysore state. So these aspects are very, I think, highlighted little less, and a convenient history pushed along. And if you want to know how the princes are treated, not that we really care anymore about our privilege or anything which was removed in 1972 by Indira Gandhi. That was done purely because there was a big movement with the Swarajya party and with Gayatri Devi and all of these people, and she wanted to quell that. So she, who had no interest in this princes, no princes, went after the privileges part in that aspect of a political agenda of quashing that special privileges we had, which went well and good, we don't really care. But the privileges given by our country and our constitution to our rulers you've taken out, fine. But the British era privileges still exist. And the colonial era privileges still exist. So the Nawab of our court still gets his privileges directly from the president. The Portuguese rulers give it to the different places in Goa. So the actual constitution of India that is given by us to our own rulers, you've removed. But the colonial era titles and privileges are still being given. So that is the strange thing about India. And to be very frank, we don't really care either way. We want common law for everybody, and we are happy to be in common law as well. There are plenty of rights Indians enjoy, which we don't need less or more of. And I was born and brought up in nearly 20 years after all this was done. So these are things which are not told. Even post-independence history of the princes and how they moved through. And the same way the cultural renaissance in China killed everything that was the original Chinese. 1972 did the same thing for India, because there was no state at that time. That whole socialist and agenda and that lack of resources that India had, the only patrons of all Indian culture were the princely houses. It was continued here, and that cut off of the privileges, and then us having to, it wasn't that we were getting some great stipend. Like for my grandfather, it kept going down from 26 lakhs to wherever it was, and that was a big amount of money then. But him being governor, his entire expenses as governor, him being the Maharaja, and the entire expenses of that were all within that 26 lakhs, had to be taken care of. So it is a fixed budget. It isn't an open budget like a governor has now, where he's spending as, wherever. It is a fixed budget of 26 lakhs, and everything is taken care within that in that time, and it went down. And each subsequent ruler, it would go down even further. So like if my father got it, it would have been, of course it was already cancelled by then, it would have been something like 8 lakhs or something. By the time it came to me, it would be like 50,000 rupees or something. So like technically, if you want to go by that. So we had to eventually constrain us. That was just the pension for the time immediately after independence. And at the time of it being disqualified in 72 itself was, I think, some 5 or 10% of the budget of Madhya Pradesh at the time of when the privileges were cancelled. So these things haven't come out, which I think conveniently puts us all in one light. But we still continue to represent ourselves through the means available. There are a number of us in the parliament and various state legislatures all representing and doing our work, and so we continue in that sense, whatever we are. So I mean, we can go on about these stories, and there are plenty which are not known.
Maharaja, namaste. I am Sendil Kumar from Velur, Tamil Nadu. My question is, Wadiyar title also existed in the Chola dynasty. In some inscriptions, it's recorded as Rajaraja Chola Wadiyar. There is also a caste in Tamil Nadu with the title Wadiyar. Is there a connection between your dynasty and Tamil Nadu Chola dynasty?
No, so largely all the southern Indian languages, while we draw heavily from Sanskrit. So the way we say our southern languages, all of our rivers originate here, but the rain comes from all over India. So we've populated our words of our language with largely Sanskrit words for the most part, Tamil and Kannada included, despite what anyone says. Largely our words are, that is our language, are populated by Sanskrit words. Kannada, there is some Prakrit in it, a lot of it, because very early development of Kannada, a lot of Jain and Buddhist influences were there. But the origin is Kannada, that has to be very specific, and the same is the case of Tamil and all. Their original languages that were here locally, Sanskrit came in as this great equalizer and filler of words, because these were very rudimentary, I would suppose, in some sense. While they might have been able to communicate very extensively, obviously Sanskrit had a greater vocabulary of specific words for everything, and that's what populated. So largely when I speak Kannada also, you'll be able to recognize the words. You might not make sense of the sentence, able to speak the words. Wadiyar was a term which largely southern states would put. So I always say it has become a surname, but the concept of first name, surname, middle name is non-existent in India. You just have a name. So the Hoysala, the second last Chakravarti of the Hoysala Empire, he named his son the Hampi Wadiyar. So his intention was, he was wanting to shift the capital from Dwarasamudra in Hassan, where the old temples are of Belur, Halebeed and all of that, which I'm sure many of you have seen. He wanted to shift his capital to Hampi. Largely the iron ores around there was what attracting everyone to that area. And he named his son the Hampi Wadiyar. Of course, both of them died very horrible deaths. It's the Hampi Wadiyar who married the Chikmagalur queen, from where the Sringeri influence came and the Vijayanagara Karnataka Empire started. It's a known aspect of history, and I would love for you all to meet Vasundhara Filiosa, who's here. Maybe on another trip you all can align all these people who have this real history of India, who are sitting here in Mysore. But that aspect is forgotten. The Vijayanagara Empire, or what we should really call the Karnataka Empire, was just a continuation of the Hoysala Empire. It was a different dynasty. The original Hakka Bukka Raya never ruled as the Chakravarti. They said we are Mahamandaleshwaras. They considered the Rani from Chikmagalur as the Chakravarti. They honored her They said we are only Mahamandaleshwaras or Viceroys, and they continued. After her passing and having no heirs, they took. Arasa is just ruler, that's all. Arasu is also just ruler. So the community that we come from is Arasu. So technically you are a Kshatriya only, but your ruler here is Arasu name. So it's just it's a term put in. It became our surnames. Just as so many people where they are, their local village or their local city became their surname or their first name, whatever. This just became our surname during the colonial era. But actually, if you see the names, it was Raja Wadiyar who 1610 we became the Mahamandaleshwara at Srirangpatna and took over the Dasara tradition, etc. He's actually just Raja 1. His son would have been, his grandson, son would have been Raja 2. Wadiyar was the title. So it is in southern India that is there across the board. We've retained it as title. There are many people. There is a village named Wadiyar Grama in Hunsur. All of them have the surname Wadiyar. But that's because they come from that village. It doesn't mean they are, relatives of mine or anything like that. But that's just how we work in India. So this concept of first name, surname has come in now. And we do not recognize it because we've built, our system is largely a Western one. So we've built into that. So when you put in the passport now, for me, for the first 15, 16 years until I started filling up my own passport, my full name used to be my first name. So I never got any flight miles for the longest time because no flight would have aligned this thing for me. So it would be like, and my name wasn't changed then, it was still Yaduveer Gopal Rajars. So that entire thing was my first name. So you would have the travel agents putting all sorts of different combinations. So you could never claim miles. So that used to be one complaint of mine. So that thing. So that is just a way they work because here it never occurred to them that there is a first name, surname or anything like that. Traditionally here. My mother to this day, my Gregorian calendar birthday is of no consequence to her. She doesn't even bother. The day on which it falls on according to our Panchanga is the day which matters to her. So anything she wants to give me as a gift or do whatever, we have a ritual and everything which goes through is all on that day. Yeah.
Namaskar sir.
Yes, sir. No, whoever. Please, I don't know this.
See, the British colonial era, because it's a colonial era, there have been lots of historical questions that we are finding. Of this ritually on the island is specified, we address and correct it.
So the most common one is the Mummadi Krishna Datta III. So immediately after Tipu, he was reinstated as the Maharaja. I mean, essentially, while we somehow managed to remove ourselves from Srirangpatna, when the British were able to finish their affairs in Srirangpatna, get it in order, a week later they came to Mysore with the sole objective of finding what was the remnant of my family. They found them in what essentially in a shack, sort of very temporary structure here in the outskirts of what was then Mysore. Was this fort was there, which was being dismantled by Tipu to create another fort in Nazarbad. So he was starting to remove the stones and go and assemble them in another place. He had completely flattened this area except for two temples. Yeah, Lakshmi Ramana Swami at the back and Trineshwara here. Except for those two, and they didn't have any of the walls and the exterior sort of alignment they have now. Just the temples were there. He had flattened this place to the ground, including what previous palace was here, because he wanted all knowledge of what was us before to go. So they found us in a small house on that outside what the new fort was being built, and they came and met at that time the Rajamata, that's Lakshamani, who is there, Maharani Lakshamani, and reinstated what was Mummadi Krishna Datta III. There's a small mandap here. In fact, it's very interesting. The Lakshmi Ramana Swami is a very old temple before us. It's 1,200 years old. So way before even we came. 600 years before we came into any sort of existence, this temple has been there. There a mandap was made and he was coronated because there was simply no place to do it. And they said, while this might be one of the oldest kingdoms that we are going to reinstate, we simply don't have any place to do anything here or of any significance because there's nothing. Everything was brought down to the ground. So that small mandap there is where we had our resuscitation of our family. His era with the British was fraught with lot of issues. Because the East India Company, they had their own politics. They didn't like the fact that this was given back to the Maharajas, Governor of Madras again, created an issue with Purnaya that Maharaja had defrauded or not paid up his revenues, created a rebellion in the north west of the state, which Maharaja himself had to go to quash and placate the people there, and created this thing that we are creating an unstable empire and we do not know how to rule. That is my forefathers, that Mummadi Krishna Wadiyar III. Turns out it was a political move because the Purnaya wanted to be a hereditary Diwan, which we were against because that hereditary Diwanship had what caused Hyder and Tipu to come into power. So we were absolutely against it. And he, because he wasn't being given that hereditary status, Diwan Purnaya aligned with the governor and created this dilemma. And Diwan Purnaya was with Tipu before us. So he was just looking at continuing his power, not essentially, being sincere in whatever he was doing. It was politics. I mean, you can't blame them or fault them, but it was politics. And end of the day, it created a vacuum where in 1934, Cubbon took over, which is why we have Cubbon Park in Bangalore and so much of Cubbon everywhere for 30 years. Till 68 when Bowring came in and not 68, even earlier. So Maharaja essentially went to the Labour Party in the Parliament of the British in the House of Commons, eventually got in through the House of Lords as well, and started through a parliamentary procedure lobbying for the state to be returned to him. Eventually Victoria also said we've done an injustice to the Wadiyars, and then it was reinstated, but still here they got in because of their politics, not to Mummadi Krishna Wadiyar, but to his adopted son, Chamaraja Wadiyar the 10th, when Mummadi passed away. So he, in his last year, the great achievement was, while everybody else doctrine of lapse was applicable, one person it wasn't applicable to was him, because he was allowed to adopt a son, and his biological heir could be, not biological, his natural heir through adoption was able to continue the family legacy and history. And of course, he was luckily had the palace structure, but he was also, of course, groomed very much with a British tutor, etc., who, credit to him, didn't get in the way of the traditional practices as well. So that hybrid allowed Mysore state to really groom, and that's what set up, I suppose, the era of golden Mysore. But that era of Mummadi Krishna Wadiyar and his whole, I would say, journey of reinstating is worthy of praise, and the aspect which one JNU professor has written one book on Mysore, and she was quite understandably so. She's comes from that perspective of thinking. Essentially, wrote very badly about him, and so that continued post-independence as well. That he was a very weak and ineffective ruler, but he actually used what was the process at the time to reinstate at least his future. And if he didn't re-establish what you see today, because there was no puja anywhere happening, most of the temples, the wealth inside was gone, there was no gopuras. So now, including the temple behind us here, Prasanna Krishna Swami, the Shvetavara Swami came from Srirangpatna and was reassembled here. Then in Rangnath Swami in Srirangpatna, Melkote Chelnarayan Swami, these are all 1,500, 2,000-year-old temples, have history beyond that. These are all rishis who have come here, done tapas and put these temples in. Chamundi Hills, Srikanteshwara, Tirupati was largely the main. I just finished the Palavotsavam in Tirupati and came day before yesterday with my mother. That was reinstated by him. So all of these alignments, the Karaga in Bangalore, all of these realignments and revival of what is cultural Kannada and Bharatiya culture was done by him. And largely the tradition. Now Ashad Masa, you all are all here. Special darshan. That's why they're not allowing you, or we have to get special permission for your bus to go, because no vehicles are allowed up the hill, because there is that much rush. That is purely because it's his birthday month, that all these rituals are aligned with his birthday month. So Ashada here, I mean rest of India there are rituals, no, but Ashada specifically in Karnataka there is a lot of rituals and lot of temple going. That's because it's his birthday month, and he started all these cultural activities in his birthday month. That is the alignment. So that is largely forgotten what he did as a cultural renaissance. The 108 yoga asanas were documented in the Sri Tattvanidhi, which was a magnum opus published by him and his court. That was what T. Krishnamacharya referenced to for his first set of 108 yoga asanas, learnt it in where he did in Chennai, was what brought him to travel along the Himalayas and go in with the real, extremes of society, sort of really understand yoga in that sense where you have to go there to the Himalayas. Came back under Pandit Madan Mohan Walia in the Banaras Hindu University. My great-grand uncle was the first chancellor of Banaras Hindu University. They both met. He brings him back to Mysore. And he starts propagating here, and then the Maharaja says we need not just stretching and mobility, we need endurance and we need strength also to come into yoga if we are to build this ideal Mysorean. For him, it was the Mysorean he wanted ideal. So that is where Surya Namaskar was started. So Surya Namaskar is hardly 120 years old. So all of the dands that were happening in the wrestling akhadas behind, he incorporated into the flow, which is vinyasa. And that is it. So static yoga became dynamic only 120 years ago. And that is a Mysore product. And that yoga was taken forward by Patabi Joyce, Krishnamacharya's student, B.K. Sayangar, Krishnamacharya's son-in-law, and a few other students to the international stage. Modern yoga is a Mysore product. It is not, the asanas were never documented. There are various texts of the philosophy. Patanjali's Yoga Sutras documents the philosophy very well. But yoga as a physical practice, what we largely associate it with today, not as one of the darshanas, is a Mysore product. Vinyasa, Surya Namaskar is a Mysore product of T. Krishnamacharya, and that was Mummadi documenting these 108 in the Sri Tattvanithi, including the Sri Tattvanithi. If you can get your hands on one of the copies which was republished by the university, there are 2 copies of it, 3 technically. One has been gone abroad to one museum somewhere in the US. 1 copy is with us and 1 copy is with the Oriental Research Institute here in Mysore. But they republished it in some 6-7 volumes. It has everything from Agama to our old Ayurveda practices. Everything that was practiced in India across the board was documented in the Sri Tattvanithi. There are hundreds of books he wrote. Essentially, Kannada culture was brought back by him. So this Mummadi Krishna Datta's cultural renaissance during his time is largely forgotten. Mysore style of painting, the sort of most refined version, in my opinion, of southern painting, was his patronage. So these are all things which are largely forgotten, and something that I think his era, because of him being cast as an ineffective administrator, is something would be worth exploring.
নমস্কার স্যার, আমি পশ্চিমবঙ্গ থেকে আসছি অর্পিতা চ্যাটার্জি, মাইসেলফ অর্পিতা চ্যাটার্জি ফ্রম ওয়েস্ট বেঙ্গল. I'm a political activist on X, and I'm an assistant professor by profession. Sir, actually I'm visiting South India and Mysuru for the first time, and I find it's a very beautiful place, clean, royal, and full of architectures and all. So people of Mysuru often see you as both like you are the custodian of the royal heritage, of this royal heritage, and also a very young politician, political leader. So what do you want to history to remember you, as a parliamentarian or as a prince or as just a public servant?
No.
Thank you.
I think very one thing, I don't think they'll, I have, quite frankly, I haven't thought about how people should remember me. Obviously anybody, if they has their own personal aspirations, and nothing wrong in it. We all like our name on the wall or on a plaque as much as the next person. And certainly if you've done something worthy, we'd love for it to be remembered. But I think largely, as most of my ancestors have done, if I am successful in pushing forward this tradition in the palace, in terms of what has come down for 600 years now, 400 years in terms of the Dasara itself, I think my agenda would be successful. But largely over the last 4-5 years, we've realized our legacy is not limited to only that culture. It's further than that, always looking to serve, which is why eventually we said okay to this parliamentary exercise that I've been doing for the last 2 years. and it has been, I think, very fruitful. I think in the viewpoint of what I'm doing in Parliament, I think I'd like to be, work in a manner where I think we need to completely change this perspective of a politician. There isn't a good opinion of a politician, even with all of us here. There isn't. The moment you're in politics, you're already looked at in a lens which is bad. So you suffer from that already, and we have, I think, very much earned it. I think, in fact, modern India is looking kinder upon its monarchs than you do about modern politicians. Very much so now, with all this revival and seeing all of this renaissance in what our culture is. I think that perspective needs to change. That's the only way the politician will change, because he's already considered so bad. Many cases I see that anyway the public thinks are bad, so they do more bad. So that's how the perspective is within the political class as well. They already are of the opinion we are the worst of the kind of people. So we are doing what the kind of people do.
That's right.
And largely the population, voting population, is represented by the politician. Because while we are all sincere in voting, we are all ready to cut ends with the politician to meet our own personal needs.
Yes.
I don't know how many times people have come into my office asking to cut the corner somewhere, make some ends meet somehow, which is not, necessarily sincere. And, that just amazes me. So like now, for example, I was looking at the underbridges. PM has said all across India traffic should flow freely. So wherever there's a railway crossing, an underbridge or an overbridge will come and we need to go. So we're inspecting one of the new underbridges which is coming up on KRS Road. And the police was stopping people for not wearing helmets, etc. The usual thing. Now, whether they are sincere and they are not doing it every day, they're doing it on this day, that's another matter. But they stopped to my. One guy comes up to me and says, please make them forgo the fine. Now, what am I supposed to do in that? As a vote, it benefits me to allow him to forgo the fine. He'll remember me and vote for me there.
True.
Right?
True.
But the correct thing to do is say, no, I cannot interfere in this. He has to take the fine, right?
Yes.
This sort of dilemma comes up. 9 times out of 10, the politician will talk to the policeman and ask him to allow these guys to go. So that is what is happening here. So you need to sort of, in elections, we are all these ridiculously, ideal people coming. You have to realize that the politician is also human, and at the same time, as a voter also, understand the many idiosyncrasies that come in. And we have to change this perspective of the expectation of politicians to be this completely savior of the grand kind. See, that PM is 1 in a billion, 1.5 billion people. The general politician is the general person you are going to meet. So you need to, I think, align that identity going for, rather get that thought alignment of where, what you expect from the politician, what he needs to do, he or she needs to do, and how you can get it done. That perspective has to change. I think the bar is set too high for them to meet, and it's simply not possible.
So you are enjoying this role of this.
No, I'm able to balance it out. I'm able to wear that hat and dictate my boundaries. Yes, there will be people who say I don't do everything a politician does. There are people who say I don't behave stately enough as a from the background I come. Right. Now you have to understand where your lines exist and what lines you will cross or not cross, and you know how to do it. See, largely, you set up your own agenda and you build a hypothesis around it, how you're going to work, and you have objectives, and that's what you're working towards. And understanding, it's a great thing, and I don't think anybody in India knows people management better than Indian politicians. Just the vast spectrum of people they have to manage. It is, and there is no way of learning it but getting into politics. So that is, I think, something that has been very enjoyable. And we have lots of ties to Bengal, if you want to know that also, because it was the capital before Delhi. So when Swami Vivekananda came in, and the reason I'm saying it is Honorable PM is coming here on 1st of August to inaugurate the Viveka Smaraka. So where Swami Vivekananda stayed when he came to Mysore, And the person who I said was adopted by Mumbai Krishna Wadiyar.
Okay.
Swami Vivekananda met him here, and the famous last two lines of the letter is quoted today everywhere, where those alone who live for others are alive, the rest are more dead than alive. Those two lines of Swami Vivekananda which are there. The vagaries of life, it's a famous two lines. That's in a letter written to him. Pardon? Those alone who are alive who live for others, the rest are more dead than alive. That quote comes from that letter written to Maharaja, and he came here and spent 2 days here. So the area where he stayed has been restored, and a museum and an education and cultural sort of center has been built right very close here called Viveka Smaraka. PM will be inaugurating on August 1st, and so that history will be shown there. And the same Maharaja passed away in Calcutta. So his Smaraka is there on Kalighat till this day. We go to Kalighat for paying our respects now. So it's right there, right next to the meaning maybe 500 meters away from Kali Ma temple. So lots of history there.
Lots of history.
No, thank you very much. It's a great honor for us.
Namaste, sir.
Yeah.
First of all, thank you for having us. And I just wanted to ask, who have been your biggest intellectual and leadership mentors, and what's the most valuable lesson you imparted?
Sorry, what's the most?
I just wanted to ask that who have been your biggest intellectual and leadership mentors?
I think largely, I was not the greatest student throughout college, but that was more to me. I don't want to blame the system and all that. It's purely myself. Yes, there are systemic things which we can fault a million times, but it was largely myself that was at fault there. I think I've been educated in large part by books only, like which my own reading and my own doing, and I think very grateful to all those who have documented that and brought it down. And unfortunately for us, the most easy medium has been English. So the modern authors who have sort of now translated and figured out, I would say, what some of the early even authors during British era who started writing, Aurobindo Ghosh and all of them started writing that era, but now it has simplified because you can't read that stuff, is ridiculous to read. They have simplified that and brought it down in this modern era. I'm very grateful for them for that aspect of it. So in a pure sort of in what is the Hindu Renaissance aspect of what's coming down today, everybody from, I would say, Sai Deepak to this Anand Ranganathan to Rajiv Malhotra, all of their books across the board, whatever you want to say, they are on TV doing what they are doing. That's what they are doing in a modern sense, defending it. But their writings are absolutely true. There hasn't been anybody who can fault what they've been doing there. That from a modern sense. I would say maybe our gurus at Sringeri, I listen to their talks all the time. They have, in every which way, sort of the messages they give have been very much helpful in sort of building an outlook which has been positive and understanding. I think I draw a lot of inspiration from that era, and that institution is has lasted 1200 years. Without any interruption, whatever you want to say. And it's the original Shankaracharya Pita. Before the other three were set up, Sringeri was set up, and they have, except for one incident with during the war with Tipu and the Marathas, they have largely been untouched, and they have influenced empire after empire and led them along the right path. So that's one place I draw a lot of intellectual inspiration from. My grandfather's writings, I think they're not largely unavailable, but his speeches in a very simple way, Religion and Man, and I can share the e-text so that you all can all read it. Very simple speeches which he gave all over the world, give the basic knowledge of our Indian knowledge systems and our belief system and our spirituality which is there. Of course, he did do a bhashya on the Avadhuta Gita, eventually called Dattatreya, but that's a more complex thing which you can get to if you all want. But the basis of it, I think his writings also helped a lot. So a lot of people, I think, intellectually influence, and I keep listening to all of them. My mother, obviously, in terms of helping me understand the palace tradition, obviously, because I knew zero, put me on track there. These are the main sort of people I draw inspiration from. I want to say political, there are a whole host of people who we do. Obviously, we listen to our PM and HM and all of that they've been saying and doing. But I think there is great amount of knowledge you can draw from the sort of Congress guys other than the family. Getting even Ambedkar's writings. He wasn't a congressman ever, but his writings and all that, it's worth reading. You get a real understanding of what what that era was, and a different perspective on the entire independence movement. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel's lots of his books I read just to understand what he was going through and thinking, and it's really sad that he didn't get more time. His last days, VP Menon was the one doing all his work, and he was largely voiced out once Sardar Patel wasn't there. I think that is a great sort of book to read. P.V. Narasimha Rao, one of the most underappreciated people. I think you should really go through his time and all of what he did, and how he balanced what was a coalition government. Might have been majority Congress, but it was a coalition for him, because he had to balance Arjun Singh and all these other guys. Very interesting to read. So these are very interesting parts and eras of Indian history which are very much worth reading. Morarji Desai years are very interesting. So these are politically few, and my own personally what are there. Yeah, but largely I'm reading history books, so I think it's
Namaste sir, my name is Preeti Bhati. I am from Uttar Pradesh. My question is for you. Like as we know, Mysuru is rich with culture and heritage, but still there is a problem of talent retention. मोस्टली जो मैसूर का यूथ है वो बेंगलोर जैसी सिटीज़ में शिफ्ट हो रहा है जॉब अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ के लिए. तो आपका क्या रोड मैप है जिससे आप बहुत सारे एजुकेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस या आईटीज़ या ऐसा इको फ्रेंडली इंडस्ट्रीज़ बिल्ड कर सकें, ताकि जो हमारा यूथ है वो अपने घर मैसूर में अपना करियर बिल्ड कर सके. So that's my question for you.
Largely, what I've seen, once their home is Mysore, they go out. They don't ever say any other place is their home. Eventually, they find their way back here. That's an observance of mine, and I've seen it across the board, including my own parents, biological parents, who never would have imagined they are all back in Mysore of their own volition. The other thing about mobility, the natural mobility and the freedom to move, I think we have sort of put this talent retention aspect on it. I think we shouldn't restrain that. I am of that belief. I don't like this thing of saying we need to retain it. People have the freedom to choose, and they will choose where they want to go. We shouldn't be putting barriers up for that. Mysore has a specific set of, like an individual has a skill set, Mysore has a specific set of economic drivers. If you work within that system, you can be here and continue to be here and do good here. But if you see yourself moving, you should be allowed to move. I think this brain drain and this talent retention thing has, in a way, working like a detriment now. We need to allow natural mobility. It really empowers India. If you look at all the new FTAs, one of the great things, according to me, is that we are going to be sending a lot of Indian talent abroad. But the understanding is that Indian human capital is going to be one of the great exports that we have. And that wealth is going to come back to India. We have that very strong belief, and systems put into place that they will empower back and push a lot of that wealth back to India. So that's a different export capital that only Indians have because of the one English knowledge we have, the young demographic we have, and our sort of ability to go anywhere and really work well. I've had the good conference to go to the Munich Security Conference. They're all appreciative of Indians. There is a new movement in the US. We love Indians. It's the others who are the problem. So all of this coming through is very good for us. The EU FTA has 1 million STEM individuals going abroad. So we need to find a happy medium where we do not say this talent retention word. We do create economic drivers for that city to ensure that the city's economy is thriving. But talent should be allowed to move. I want all of you all to come to Mysore from your places as much as a Mysorean should be able to go there. Talent should be allowed to move. I think it works well for the integration of India. And in the larger scheme of pure economics, if you want to say, anywhere over the world, please see the largest of economies today. No one has been able to, despite every effort, retain people from moving to the metros. There are economic centers, people will migrate to them. Doesn't mean they lose touch of their home base. There are people in the US with Greek ancestry, Polish ancestry, German ancestry, who still acknowledge that ancestry and still abide by some small relic of that. In India, that is much stronger. So, I mean, it's in front of us. I know there are broader spectrums of dharmic work which are happening for integration of Indians across the board, and I think that's a great part of it. So yes, the economic driver aspect and retaining the cultural ethos of Mysore should be strengthened by building strong economic drivers. That shouldn't mean that we create barriers for human capital to move around. That mobility should be there. There are a lot of people who come into Mysore and become Mysoreans. Today they are Trineshwara, we mentioned here. There is a statue of my forefathers there. The puja happens by the Maratha community because they came so many years ago as warriors into the Mysore army. So they come and worship there because he was the Maharaja who allowed them to integrate here. So a natural mobility will happen. Doesn't mean you're going to become less Mysorean or more Mysorean. The cultural ethos has to go forward, as we want the culture of Bharat to go forward. So that aspect of it, I think, working out a framework for is more important than restraining the mobility. You need that in pure economic thought, restraining human capital is very detrimental. I think,
He already mentioned that there is a lot of people in Bangladesh who what is the idea?
Yes, sir. I mean, pan-India, the problem of Bangladeshi infiltration is there. SIR is going on here, which was what we were doing all morning. It's a matter of us as a party being active and identifying this, and no matter whatever the current government is doing politically and placing officers, we have to make sure that our agenda moves forward. I mean, you can get into the details of it, but we are actively, very actively going after it to ensure that only Indians have the right to vote in our state, just as everyone else has managed to pull through.
Namaste sir, Jai Shri Ram.
Yes.
I am Thakurudara Singh from Bareilly, Uttar Pradesh. So from the day we came Mysore, we all are having great time, having fun, taking photographs. But in your opinion, what's that one thing जो हम सबको मैसूर से साथ लेके जानी चाहिए besides photographs?
You mean like an object or like a sentiment?
Sentiments.
I mean, it's again hard to explain, but there's a very unique sentiment attached to Mysoreans of being in Mysore. Meaning for us, Mysore has the old part of the city. What is the old city now? Around a 5-kilometer radius around the palace. It's just a feeling we have. Even though I was born and brought up in Bangalore, home was always Mysore for us. That was where home was. Despite being born and brought up in Bangalore and always having my address, everything put as Bangalore, home was always Mysore because the entire family was here. That is sort of irreplaceable. When I've never felt sort of bad leaving any place and coming back here. I don't know what, in so many words to say it. We are always very happy to be here and not go anywhere else also, Mysoreans. It's a sentiment that we have attached to our city. So the aspect of Mysore, which I would say, as a sentiment, very hard to explain in words, but I would say just it's again very hard to put into words. I would say I think the unique culture that is here, the hybrid that was built up in Mysore, and maybe that's a model for India, is something you can learn as what you all are doing professionally. A sentimental feeling, I think you have to draw on your experiences and enjoy and take back from here. I think for me this is the city which will be the sort of cultural anchor for South India. because it has all influences of, it has Tamil influences, it has a little bit of Telugu influences, it has a lot of Malayalam influence also, and it has uniquely the center of Kannada as well, alongside Bangalore. So it has a very big role to play in the future, and I think that aspect of it, if you can put it into words, what an experience is, I suggest the idea of being Mysorean would be something you take away as a sentiment. If you want to say a product, obviously the Mysore Park is easy. It's easier to put there. Mysore also has the most amount of GIs, geographical indicators. The original 250 names that were produced had 25 from Mysore. Mysore sandal soap, Mysore silk, Mysore park, Mysore peta, Mysore wood inlay, Mysore mallige, the Nanjangud Raspal, and all of Mysore stuff. So something products-wise we have many. Sentiment-wise, hard to explain.
Namaste. My name is Harshita, also known as Arevira. I am a social activist and also working on our history. Like we are making content about our Indian civilizations. So my question is like I'm asking in Hindi.
Please.
मैं काफ़ी टाइम से 4 years से मैं वुमेंस के ऊपर रिसर्च कर रही हूँ. हमारी जो इंडियन हिस्ट्री है वुमेंस की. So I read about South Indian women like Channa Bhairadevi, Naikaralu Nagamma, Unni Archa. So I feel that कि जब भी हमारे यहाँ पर हिस्ट्री में कोई भी वर्क होता है NCERT में भी कुछ अपग्रेडेशन होता है तो वुमेन हिस्ट्री पे काम बहुत कम होता है. आज मोस्टली गर्ल्स को नीडेड है कि हमें अपनी हिस्ट्री जाननी पड़ेगी. जस्ट यू हैव ऑल्सो लक्ष्मी विलास अम्बानी महारानी. So I read their history also. So my question is कि when will we work on this to preserve this and हम बच्चों तक ये कैसे पहुंचाएंगे, हमारी जो बच्चियां हैं या युवा लोग हैं उन तक कैसे पहुंचाएंगे. लेफ्ट सोशल मीडिया सोशल मीडिया पर हम शेयर करते हैं, समटाइम्स वो थोड़े दिन तक चलता है, वो ट्रेंड होता है तब तक, लेकिन उसके बाद वो कहीं प्रिजर्व नहीं हो पाता. रिसर्च में भी बहुत ज़्यादा मेहनत लगती है, तो क्या किया जा सकता है जी.
It's a very important aspect. Obviously we want gender equality as a pure definition is something we want to really aspire to. The fact of the matter is men and women aren't equal. We have very different traits and very different aspirations, and we have different objectives biologically, in reality and every other aspect. So I think traditionally Indian system did very well for allocating the space to women. They were leaders also. So Lakshmani, if you want to know, despite being a very traditional lady, when the smallpox vaccine came into India, and there was a big issue with the local population of taking that smallpox vaccine. There was vaccine hesitancy like now, and there was fear created by local doctors. But that was the vaccine, and we knew it was the way. She had her daughter-in-law stand in front of a big field and take that vaccine in front of everybody. So she played this role of a traditional matriarch in resuscitating and making sure her grandson resuscitates the cultural aspects of the state. But she wasn't opposed to modern medicine, modern technology which is beneficial to society. And I think women need to sort of re-amalgamate those aspects. We do not need to redefine the Indian sort of cultural place that women have, put it into a Western sort of idea there. There is already a very important and well-defined and perhaps even more important role for women in Indian society already. That needs to be carried forward and understood properly if we are to go forward. I think so. And then there are aspects of the feminist movement, the women's suffragette, all of those things which are beneficial. But we don't need to take the whole lot of it and put it on to India. You need to take what aspects of it are there important and move those forward. I think that aspect needs to come ahead of above everything else. We to this day maintain that our family was, if not for women, we wouldn't be here. At all times when we've not had if we had a young ruler or we've had no ruler, it's the women who stepped up, including in Vani Vilas Sannidhana's time. So Indian Institute of Science, which everybody today is, lauds all over the world as the greatest PhD institute, this creation of Vani Vilas Sannidhana is a women-led institution. That is a women a woman who's given a grant and created one of the greatest institutions in India. And she gave the land from Bangalore Palace and did it. So these are all aspects which are unknown and used to happen throughout India. And you have many instances of Indian history where women have led from the front and they have maintained the cultural aspect also. So I think it is a matter of just realigning and perhaps creating some sort of a hybrid of that for the modern Indian woman and taking that forward. I think there is not much to be rethinking there in that aspect. I think our culture itself has always placed women in very important role and given them, I would say, perhaps even more of an elevated status than men. And it hasn't ever not allowed them to come into places of leadership or have no role in society other than propagation, which is the common what a patriarchal sort of movement, anti-patriarchy sort of movement that the West has. That is a non-existent notion even in the West, I believe, and certainly true in India.
Sir, Jai Shri Ram, sir. So I'm Karthik, I'm from Bhagyanagar, Hyderabad. So many youngsters like us, Dharma Pracharaks, they are working to preserve Sanatana Dharma and taking forward our scriptures to the next generation children. So I also do this Hanuman Katha, Ramayana and all this. So what is the one advice so you want to give to us, especially to all the Dharma Pracharaks?
I am a subscriber to what you do rather than a person who does that work. So I'm the last person to give advice. Okay. But I think whatever work you all are doing is, I think, in many ways, really put people, back to the path of using your sort of different channels and pages or whatever social media handles as a stepping stone to the next stage of going to a guru, going to a pracharak, or eventually consulting some book to understand where this comes. Even the simple act of whatever you all put up, then eventually clicking on Wikipedia may not be entirely the right thing to do, allows you to go one step forward. I think that is the biggest service we can do. I think, again, I've last one to give any advice. I think more has to happen in terms of us properly elucidating in English and at the same time reaching out in other languages. I think southern India, we really need to do this aspect. I don't know about Hyderabad, but certainly in Karnataka, that sentiment is growing. While our state anthem itself says Jai Bharata Jananiya Tanujate Jai He Karnataka Mate. I mean, from the womb of Bharatamba is where Kannadamba is born. That's the state anthem. They still try to bring in this narrative conveniently, which has come in everywhere else, that we are some sort of different race itself. It is not at all true. DNA is the same for all of us, and we are all that originally from Bharatama. Like I've said, the Kannada language may have originated here as a local sort of origin. The river originates here, but the rainwater came from all over India. So that aspect of it needs to be the sole objective of what we are doing here all around. And I think that has to go up further. And I think that's to come.
Jai Shri Ram, sir. My name is Nikhil. I am from Jammu Kashmir. Sir, I wanted to ask you, I should be talking about Mysuru, but this topic is trending, so I wanted to ask you that as you are a parliament member, also you are from BJP. So I wanted to ask you that what's your opinion on student protest? Like we know that CGP is...
No. There was a genuine protest, no doubt about it, and the anger over the original NEET and the paper leak is genuine. There is no doubt about it, and understandably so. We are with you in that. But we've taken, in my opinion, the appropriate action immediately when the leak was identified. It was immediately the exams was cancelled, which should be done. Everybody has to have a equal chance without knowing the questions before going forward. CBI was brought in. 13 people have been arrested, and PM has now set up the fast track court. Next week will be, I think cabinet is now considering the new law, and next week we'll be passing the new law, which makes it much more strict. The bureaucracy has been completely shifted around, and new bureaucracy has been put in to ensure that what the system itself was failing, those fixes are put in. Perhaps a complete revolution in that aspect happens as well. So that aspect of it, and protesting that, everyone has to feel anger and to protest. Now what has happened is all the cabal that is the anti-national and the other leftist groups have come in and joined hands and using this platform to further their ends. You are sure aware of what's happened in Nepal. You have seen what's happened in Bangladesh. You have seen what's happened in Sri Lanka. That same model is trying to replicate here, And conveniently, the India Alliance is the launch pad, trying to be the launch pad for this. It's not going to vote in India because we are while we, maybe different sections of our population are in different aspects of economic development, very clearly, if you see the West Bengal election, people express their anger in a vote. They do not express their anger by demolishing public institutions and doing anarchic traits. So it is my belief that whatever anger they have, the real anger of the Indian will come through democratic institutions, not by tearing it down. The institution belongs to the people, and the people believe that an institution belongs to them. That aspect of Indian voter confidence and Indian population at large is still there. So the paper leak and the issue which happened with NEET, you have to distance from what is happening in Delhi now. The re-exam had happened, the result was published, and the protest started in alignment with our session. So there is a political movement. You've seen what's happened all around India. They do not want SARC, including Pakistan. Imran Khan is still in jail. So you've seen what has happened in the SARC countries. They're trying for the sort of stabilizer of SARC countries also to undergo the same thing. I think we have the right leadership to deal with it, and we will certainly see it through. But again, the role of all of you is very big in that, because it needs to come up at that level, because this has been a largely influencer-led. And one thing we need to know is, while we were the first to catch on to the trend of the social media and etc., the other side now is doing their bit as well. Maybe untrue, but they're doing their bit.
Hi sir, I am Krishna Prabha from Tamil Nadu, Trichy. Do you think Karnataka government, including Congress government, demand to process the construction of the Meghdadu Dam?
Meghdadu?
Yes, Meghdadu. What is your opinion, sir?
I mean, we have to go in through a lot of detail. I mean, I don't want to, in this camera, speak, fully at the extent of what it is. See, we have a right to controlling our resources in Karnataka. Now, Meghdadu and where the point of the dam should be, is something which we should see thoroughly, and all the environmental studies obviously have to happen. That is a fact of matter. Any, sincere Indian will obviously want all of the environmental attributes to given the fact that dams are, largely, in many cases been environmental disasters. But I think Karnataka requires the water. And so from that aspect, obviously we are all for the Meghdadu project. But we are not for denying anybody their water. But we need our water resources collected and done. I think also we need to be starting looking at desalination and all these other things also, alongside the irrigation projects which are there. And feasibility of all projects should also be taken into account. But from the pure aspect of us taking more control of our resources, it is obviously something that we welcome.
So we went with one last question.
And I'm fine, but I think Lingana, in time, so we have 10 minutes, but your tour and rest of Mysuru is more also important. So, yaar guide anta vicharsu kadsare yaru anta helbondu.
Actually, we have 3 more questions.
No problem. We'll manage. Who is the meeting? Okay. Yeah, you can come. No problem.
नमस्कार सर, मेरा नाम सत्या तिवारी है। मैं महाराष्ट्र मुंबई से आया हूँ। मैं अदर स्टेट की जब हम लोग आते हैं और जब हम लोग मैसूर के बारे में सुनते हैं, तो हमारे मन मस्तिष्क में सबसे पहला जो तस्वीर उभर के आती है वो टीपू सुल्तान की आती है। और वो क्यों आती है पता ही है, आपने बता ही दिया कि इतिहास में किस तरह से और सिनेमा के माध्यम से, किताबों के माध्यम से टीपू सुल्तान का इस तरह से महिमा मंडल कर दिया गया है। जबकि हमारे जो हिंदू राजा रहे हैं, वडियार जो राजवंश रहा है, किस तरह से बलिदान दिए, जिनकी वजह से आज जो मैसूर की संस्कृति सभ्यता आज भी बची हुई है, उनके बारे में इतिहास की किताबों में नहीं बताया गया है। तो अब आने वाली जो जनरेशन है या जो वर्तमान जनरेशन है, उनको मैसूर की रियल हिस्ट्री, सभ्यता, संस्कृति और वडियार राजवंश के जो बलिदान हैं उनके बारे में पता चले, और अदर स्टेट के लोगों को भी पता चले। उसके बारे में सर आप
more other states it's required. I think locally in Mysore, largely our youth are quite well informed. We have a local influencer group here who always is putting up, have their of their own interest, putting up stories here. There are people who go street by street in Mysore and do their own research and get all that history out. And there are several books published in Kannada about Mysore history, including the streets. There's a book of the streets of Mysore, so which goes into depth of each and every street in Mysore and the economy that was built around it, etc. So we have to bring this out into the mainstream. And one fault is our own. We've not really addressed this Tipu thing properly. Again, he was made a hero by the British because they defeated him. And post-independence, he suited a particular narrative, so they allowed it to go on. I mean, there's a picture of him in the Constitution of India. There's a drawing of him in the original Constitution.
हिस्ट्री में
this
किताबों में
needs to
सिनेमा के
be.
माध्यम से मैनिपुलेट किया
So it has been done. Vikram Sampath's book is brilliant on Tipu Sultan. He is not written any, he is just called it Tipu Sultan. So that book you can go through and you can see for yourself and you judge for yourself.
बट मेरा क्वेश्चन ये था कि अदर स्टेट के लोग कैसे हमारे ये सारे हिस्ट्री को मतलब
So that has to come of own history. So what I'm saying is it has to come of their own interest. I cannot change. The facts now are available in plenty for people. I think it's just a matter of time before it comes out. I think well and truly now the Tipu thing has been broken, at least in Karnataka level, at a national level to a certain degree, and certainly with those people who work in the wider spectrum of what we are all working in. One more level of the mainstream it has to go to. And they have to understand these things properly. So that has to happen. But as you said, rightfully so, Tipu never even came here. He was in Srirangpatna, but he's always associated with Mysore. And he never even called his state Mysore. He called it something else. He wanted to some heaven or some terminology in Persian. But that has to come out. Yeah.
So one last question. There are a lot of huge following people Wadiyar. So we want to hear any recommendations on Netflix show that.
No, see, the last person to watch any show. If it is anything to do with Indian history, philosophy, I prefer to read rather than watch a show, because whatever you want to say, I think cinematography and the way stories are done, the West does it very much so better. Whatever you want to say, I think we are coming up now, but we have some ways to go. And I think our aspect of exaggerating everything, we put it into film as well. So, I thought, when Dhurandhar came out, it was so good to have this movie which showed the actual fact. But the exaggeration of everything took away from it so badly. So that was my thing, like, why did you exaggerate all the drama side of Hindi movies and put in the song and dance when that is there? That is a fact and a matter of our Bollywood and our this thing, and it should be there. But in these sort of movies where you are, showing true history and you want to the truth element of it is the objective rather than the filmy Bollywood aspect of it, that thing draws away. So for me, I largely watch more if I do watch more of Western stuff. I've always been a big enjoyer and a big lover of what they do, cinematography, and the way I've been a literature student in US also, so getting into that has been a part of what I've been doing since student days. So, but if you want to really watch a show, my favorite show of all time is Mad Men. Just 60s New York and the way they did all that, I think it's just one of the most well done shows. And if you English literature and ascribing meaning to all things, which is what English literature makes you do, which isn't there in the text, and put into all that, Mad Men is the best show to do that. I mean, it's so much in depth. You'll watch the show and then watch the analysis of the show. It's like that. So I think it's one of the best shows that's there. I don't know if it's on Netflix, but it's on one of them. So it's worth seeing. But yeah, largely now I just watch stuff which doesn't require me to pay much attention. So because, you have enough on your mind. So I don't watch too much, which is very engaging. I would say if you find translations of Kannada film, older film, they're really worthwhile. Dr. Rajkumar's film, really worthwhile. I'm really bad at modern stuff. A lot of the stuff that's happening on the OTT platform, Prachyam, is very good. I like what they're doing a lot, and the documentary work that's coming there. There's that show on Netflix of It is talks about all those ancient empires and goes beyond traditional history. No, it is. I have it somewhere on my list, but I'll forward it to you all. That's been very good. So I've been watching a couple episodes of that because I just read that book on ancient Egypt there. So he goes into the theories of. There is a theory where all these after the original ice melt, all our continental shelves went down, and there exists a different civilization which we lost. It's called the Hunger Dryas theory or something like that. There's a theory. So all these continental shelves, including India, there is a great flood, and if you see, Dwarka is also flooded. There's a great flood all over. So the same thing happened across the globe, and that's why we have this great flood story in all our cultural texts. And so he goes into each of these different empires and saying there was a very culturally advanced civilization before traditional history time, and that has been recorded in our cultural texts, including our Puranas here in India. And that aspect is revived there. That show is there. It's called some. I'll forward it to you, and you can forward it. I don't have the names. It's not. No, that's that Matt Damon thing which is covered now. Yeah, but it's Matt Damon, right? Who's on it? Yeah. No, I haven't watched it. No, I haven't watched it. I'm very bad. Again, very bad at movies. I haven't gone for anything. The only reason I went for Dhurandhar is one of my parliamentary friends pulled me in to go in Delhi. Yeah, please.
One small question. I'm sort of from Kashmir and development travel coordinator. So I want to know that अगर कोई मैसूर आना चाहता है तो आप एक कारण एक रीजन से क्या वो मैसूर आके घूमे और अगर वो आता है तो मस्ट ट्राई डिश क्या होनी चाहिए उसके लिए?
So Mysore, I mean, reasons to come are plenty. I think above all for me, if I used to come to Mysore, again, as a person who stays here, like, I mean, I can only tell you the traditional things. People come here to see the palace, come here to see the zoo, and come here to Chamundi Hills. I would personally say come to, in a modern sense, come and enjoy the yoga sort of culture of Mysore. Take a yoga class. Go to do what they do. Like you see what there are many foreigners here. In fact, if you go to Gokulam and Jayalakshmipuram, you'll see par for as many foreigners as you will see Indians. Par for par you'll see. Then foreigners as in not just from the West. You'll see Japanese, you'll see Korean, you'll see everybody. So they'll be just enjoying that full yoga life. So take a yoga class, then they visit the many cafes that have come. Cafe culture in Mysore, while we have lesser than Bangalore, I think the quality of our coffee is much better if you're into that sort of thing. And you want to take one dish away from Mysore, again, see, this part of me is like absolutely, there is no Indian in me that I'm the last, really not a fan of our own Mysore food that much. But it's a very bland food that we have here. But I'm sure they'll tell you where you get some local banana leaf food, and I think they've arranged that for you. So maybe try that. They'll have the local food here. It is very nice. I mean, there's very subtle flavors. It doesn't get into the spice. I don't know what have we arranged. But who's the caterer? It's a local way. So that it's a very local sort of flavor, and yeah, that I would recommend that. So again, food-wise and our sort of modern film-wise, Indian things, I really am very bad. I don't know much about it. That's that's how it is. Yeah. If you want coffee places, I have recommendations, so that you can ask me. Yeah.
Sir, we'd like to take a group photo.
Yeah, we'll do it in front of the palace itself.
Sure.
We'll get that.
And for that, we are to give a small.
Oh, thank you so much. That's very kind. Thank you so much. That's very kind of you. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. I'll keep it. Very nice. Thanks.